So that is how she lost all her color. When I opened the door to my house after 15 days away, the first thing I felt was that something was wrong. The air smelled different. It smelled like fresh paint and like expensive perfume that was not mine. I left my suitcase in the entryway and walked slowly down the hall, my heart starting to beat faster, as if my body knew something my mind did not want to accept yet. My feet carried me straight to my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open with a trembling hand, and that is when my world stopped. My bed was no longer there. That mahogany wood bed where I had slept for 25 years, where I had mourned the death of my husband, where I had sewn my children's clothes in the early hours of the morning, had disappeared. In its place was a modern bed, white with decorative cushions that looked like they were pulled right out of a home design magazine. The walls that I had painted a soft peach color were now a light gray. My photographs, the pictures from my wedding of my small children of my husband, with his smile, were no longer hanging there. I felt like the floor was moving beneath my feet. "Do you like how it turned out, mother-in-law?" The voice came from behind, sweet like poisoned honey. I turned around slowly. There was Valerie, my daughter-in-law, leaning against the doorframe with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She was wearing a tight wine-colored dress. Her hair freshly styled, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked victorious. "What did you do?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "We redecorated, mother-in-law. The house needed a change, something more modern, more functional." She walked over and ran her hand along the gray wall. "And well, this room is perfect for me. It has better light, more space. Robert and I needed it." My hands started to shake. I closed my fists to control them. "Where are my things? Where is my bed?" Valerie sighed as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "In the garage, mother-in-law. Everything is there, stored away safely. Do not worry." She paused and tilted her head. "We thought you could stay in the guest room. It is smaller, yes, but at your age you do not need so much space, right? Besides, this way you do not have to climb the stairs every day." Every word was a slap in the face. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not give her that satisfaction. I looked her straight in the eyes. Those eyes that now shined with something I had never seen before, contempt. And in that moment I understood something that broke my soul. To her, I was not a person, I was a burden, an old piece of furniture that had to be moved to make space. I took a deep breath. "You want a space just for yourself?" I said with a calmness I did not know where I found. She smiled wider, believing she had won. "Perfect." I continued. "Today you are going to find a house to live in." Her smile froze. The color drained from her face as if someone had pulled a switch. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "What did you say?" "You heard me, Valerie. If you need your own space so badly, get yourself a house. This one is mine." But what I did not know in that moment, what I still could not imagine, was that this confrontation was just the beginning. Because Valerie had not acted alone, and what I would discover in the coming days was going to destroy me in ways I could not even imagine. Because when you trust the people you love, you never expect them to stab you in the back, much less when those people are your own blood. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel to keep hearing real testimonies of women who found their strength when everything seemed lost. Valerie looked at me as if I had lost my mind. She let out a nervous laugh, one of those laughs that sound fake even to the person making them. "Mother-in-law, you cannot be serious. Kick us out." "But Robert is your son. This is his house too." "I bought this house," I said, and my voice now sounded firmer. "I paid for it brick by brick with the sweat of my brow, and nobody asked me for permission to touch my things." At that moment, Robert appeared in the hallway. My son. The boy I carried in my womb, who I raised alone after his father died, the one I gave everything I had and everything I did not have. He came out in sweatpants and a t-shirt with a face that looked like he just woke up, even though it was already 3 in the afternoon. "What is going on? Why are you guys yelling?" he asked, scratching his head. "Your wife turned my bedroom into hers." I told him, feeling the rage starting to break the calm I had maintained. "Without asking me, without even telling me. Did you know?" Robert avoided my gaze. He stood there looking at the floor like when he was a child and I would catch him in a lie. "Mom, Valerie said it was a surprise," he stammered, "that we wanted to renovate the house so it would look better. I did not think that—" "You did not think," I interrupted him. "Or you did not want to think." Valerie walked over to him and grabbed his arm in a gesture that pretended to be protective but seemed possessive to me. "Robert, your mother is exaggerating. We just made some improvements. The house was very outdated with really old furniture. We did it for the good of everyone." "For the good of everyone," I repeated, feeling something hot rising up my chest. Where is the good for me in all of this? Robert finally looked at me. "Mom, calm down. It is not a big deal. We can fix up the guest room really nicely for you. We can even—" "I do not want you to fix anything for me." I cut him off. "I want my room. I want my things. I want to be respected in my own house." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Valerie squeezed Robert's arm tighter. "Mother-in-law, I think you're being a little selfish," she said, and her tone had changed now. It was colder. "This house is big. It has 4 bedrooms. Why do you need the biggest one if you are alone? Robert and I need space. We are thinking about having a baby soon and—" "Then find your own house for that baby," I said. Robert sighed, frustrated. "Mom, do not be like that. Where are we going to go? We live here. This is our home." "Your home," I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "And what about mine?" I needed to see my things. I needed to confirm with my own eyes that this was not a nightmare. I walked down the stairs toward the garage with Robert and Valerie following me. When I opened the door, the smell of mildew hit my face. There they were, my furniture. My antique wooden dresser, the one that had belonged to my mother. My disassembled bed leaning against the wall. My boxes. I opened one with trembling hands and found my photographs thrown in carelessly, some with broken frames. The photo of my wedding with Louis, the glass shattered right over his smiling face. I felt something inside me break. "We stored them carefully, mother-in-law," Valerie said from behind, but her voice sounded hollow without conviction. I took the broken photograph in my hands. Louis looked at me from the past, young, happy, not knowing he would die just 12 years later and leave me alone raising our children. I pressed the frame against my chest. "I need to be alone," I murmured. "Mom." Robert tried to approach. "I said I need to be alone." I screamed and my voice bounced off the walls of the garage. They left. I heard them go up the stairs and close the door. I stayed there, sitting on the cold floor of the garage, surrounded by my life packed in cardboard boxes, as if it was worth nothing. I cried. I cried like I had not cried since Louis's funeral. But these tears were different. They were not of sadness for an inevitable loss. They were of rage, of betrayal, of a pain so deep it was hard to breathe. Because it is one thing to lose someone to death. It is another thing very different for the living to erase you, to discard you, to treat you as if you were a burden in your own house. That night, I slept in the guest room. Or I tried to sleep. The bed was small, the mattress was hard, and from there I could hear Valerie and Robert laughing in my bedroom. At some point in the early morning, I heard them making love. And I, the owner of that house, was lying there in a room that smelled like disuse, staring at the ceiling, wondering at what moment my life had turned into this. But what they did not know, what I still did not know, was that this humiliation was only beginning. Because the next day I was going to discover something that would force me to open my eyes once and for all. Something that was going to show me that the decoration of my room was not a simple, capricious remodel. It was part of a plan they had been plotting for months, and I had been so blind, so trusting that I did not see the signs until it was too late. or maybe not too late. I could not sleep. The hours passed slowly, heavily, while I tossed and turned in that small bed that creaked with every movement. At 4 a.m, I gave up. I got up and went to the kitchen to make myself a chamomile tea, the kind my mom used to make for me when I was a little girl and could not sleep. The house was silent. You could only hear the tick-tock of the wall clock that Louis gave me for our 10th anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table with the hot cup in my hands, and the memories invaded me like waves. I remembered when Louis and I were young and dreamed of having our own house. We lived in a rented 2-room apartment in the city with walls so thin we could hear everything the neighbors did. Louis worked as a mechanic, and I sold homemade pies in the mornings. We saved every dollar, every single dollar. I remembered the day we found the land. It was an empty lot on the outskirts of town, far from the center, without utilities. But it was the only thing we could afford, $20,000 that took us 8 years to gather. When we signed the deeds, Louis picked me up and spun me around in the middle of the dusty lot. "We are going to build our future here, my love," he told me. I was 32 years old, he was 35. We never got to build it together. 2 years after the accident, Louis died when a car ran a red light and hit him on his way to work. I was left alone with Robert, who was 15, and Lucy, who was 12, without money, without a house of our own yet. But I did have a piece of land and a promise I had made in front of his grave. Our children were going to have that home. I took 2 jobs, 3 sometimes. I cooked in a diner from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Then I cleaned offices from 4 to 9 at night. On weekends, I baked cakes for children's parties. I slept 4 hours a day. My hands became full of calluses. My back started to hurt permanently, but I kept saving. Robert would tell me, "Mom rests the house does not matter." But it did matter. For me, that house was more than bricks. It was the proof that Louis's sacrifice had not been in vain. It was my way of honoring his memory. It was the stability my children deserved. It took me 15 years to gather the $100,000 for the construction. 15 years of watching other mothers go to school festivals while I worked. 15 years without buying new clothes, without going to the movies, without giving myself a treat. Everything, absolutely everything, went to the house. When we finally finished building, I was 49 years old. I invited my children to see their home. Robert, already 30, arrived with Valerie. They had been dating for 6 months. She walked in looking at everything with disinterest as if it were just any house. She did not know, she could not know, that every tile in the bathroom had cost me a double shift, that every window represented a month without eating meat, that spacious living room existed because I had walked with holes in my shoes for 2 years. Lucy did cry. My daughter hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Mom, you did it. Dad would be so proud." Or, now sitting in my kitchen at 4 a.m. at 67 years old and feeling every one of them in my tired body, I asked myself, what had it all been for to end up displaced in my own house so that my daughter-in-law could erase my history as if it was worth nothing so that my son would allow them to treat me like this? The tears began to fall again, silent, bitter. I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Robert. He came down in boxers and a t-shirt, his eyes puffy with sleep. He was surprised to see me. "Mom, what are you doing awake?" I did not answer immediately. I looked at him. I tried to see in that 42-year-old man the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, but that boy was no longer there. "I cannot sleep in that bed," I said finally. "My back hurts." Robert opened the refrigerator and took out some water. He poured himself a glass and stood there without looking at me. "Mom, I know you are upset, but do you know how much this house cost me?" "Robert." He stayed silent. "Do you know how many nights I worked without sleeping so you could have a roof? How many times I skipped meals so you could eat 3 times a day?" "Mom, do not start with that." "No, son, I need you to understand." I stood up, feeling my knees protest. This house is not just walls and a roof. It is my blood, it is my life, and you two are treating it as if it were a property you can remodel at your whim. Robert set the glass on the table with more force than necessary. And what do you want me to do? Tell Valerie to undo everything we already spent $15,000 on the remodel, Mom. $15,000. I froze. What did you say? The paint, the furniture, the decorator, all that costs money. And where did you get that money? Robert looked away. We have our savings. But something in his tone told me he was lying. I knew him too well. When he lied, he scratched the back of his neck and avoided looking me in the eyes just like he was doing now. Robert, look at me. He did not do it. He looked up, and in his eyes I saw something that scared me. Guilt, deep guilt. What did you do? I asked, feeling fear start to crawl up my back. Nothing, Mom. We just improved the house, that is all. Did you use my money? No. Then what? Silence, a silence that weighed tons. Robert finished his water in one gulp and headed for the stairs. I am going back to sleep. You are paranoid. I was left alone again in the kitchen, but now the fear had settled in my chest like a closed fist because I knew my son, and I knew when he was hiding something from me. Something big. The next day I was going to start looking for answers. I was going to open drawers, review papers, ask questions, and what I was going to discover was going to break my heart into even smaller pieces, because sometimes the biggest pain does not come from strangers. It comes from the people who swore to love you, and when that betrayal is revealed, the world is never the same again. For the next 3 days, I acted as if nothing had happened, as if I had accepted my new place in the hierarchy of my own house. I made breakfast. I cleaned. I smiled when I had to smile, but inside, every fiber of my being was alert, observing, listening. Valerie walked around the house like a queen. She had appropriated not only my bedroom, but also my space in the kitchen. She moved my cast iron skillets, the ones Louis had given me, to the top cabinet where I could barely reach. She put her expensive ceramic pots in the place where mine had always been. Small victories that she savored every time I had to ask her for help to reach something. Robert left early for work and came back late. An engineer at a construction company, he earned well, but it was never enough for his expenses. It had always been like that. He spent more than he had. When he was young, I covered his small debts. He is young. He is learning, I would tell myself. Now he was 42 years old and still had not learned. On the third day, Valerie went to the beauty salon. I am going to get my hair done, mother-in-law. I will be back in 3 hours, she said, while applying lipstick in front of the hallway mirror. My mirror, the one I had bought at an antique market 20 years ago. Robert was at work. The house was empty, silent. It was my chance. I walked up the stairs, slowly holding my breath, as if someone could hear me. I entered what had been my room. The smell of Valerie's perfume saturated the air. It made me nauseous, but I kept going. I opened the closet. All my clothes had disappeared. In their place, expensive dresses, brand-name shoes, bags that cost what I earned in a month when I was working. I closed the closet and headed to the desk. It was a new piece of furniture, modern, made of glass. On top of it, there was a closed laptop. I did not touch it. I did not know how to use those technology things, but I opened the drawers. Papers. Lots of papers. Invoices for furniture. $2,000 at a luxury decor store. Receipts for payments to an interior designer. $1,500. Receipts for imported paint, for curtains for a lamp that cost more than my first car. And then I found something that froze my blood. A manila folder, inside documents printed from the internet. Pages about possession rights for improvements to the property. Legal articles marked with a yellow highlighter. When a family member invests significant money in improvements to a property, they can claim rights over it, especially if there is prolonged cohabitation and the original owner is of advanced age. My hands started shaking so much I almost dropped the papers. There were notes in the margins. Valerie's handwriting. Lawyer consultation, $500. Document all improvements. Photos before and after. I kept searching. Further back in the drawer, I found an envelope. Inside were photocopied documents, the deeds to my house, but these copies had sticky notes attached. Change to joint name with a question mark. How much time of possession is needed? My throat closed up. I could not breathe. Valerie had not redecorated just because. She was building a case. She was documenting investments to claim rights over my house, over the house that I had built with the sweat of 15 years of work. I took out my cell phone, an old one that Lucy had given me, and I took photos of everything with trembling hands. I did not know well how the camera worked, but I pressed buttons until I heard the click. I put everything back exactly as it was and left the room. I went down to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, but I could not swallow. The water got stuck in my throat along with the knot of betrayal that grew and grew. I needed more information. I waited for night to fall. Robert arrived at 9. Tired. He went straight to shower. Valerie was watching television in the living room in my favorite armchair, eating popcorn that she let fall to the floor without picking it up. I went to sleep early. Or that is what I pretended. At 11 at night, I heard Valerie talking on the phone. Her voice was coming from the back garden. I got up without making a noise and approached the window of the guest room that faced the garden. The thin curtains allowed me to see without being seen. There she was, walking among my geranium pots, the cell phone glued to her ear. "It is almost ours, Mom, I swear to you." Her voice sounded excited, triumphant. "The old lady is confused. She says she is going to kick us out, but she cannot. Robert is her son. This is his home, too." Silence while she listened to her mother on the other side. "No, she does not know anything about the loan yet. Robert is afraid of her. He is not going to tell her." She laughed. "Imagine her face when she finds out we use the house as collateral, but by then we will already have everything fixed." My heart stopped beating. Loan collateral. "Look, Mom, the plan is simple," Valerie continued. "We keep investing in improvements. The more money we put in, the stronger our legal case. The lawyer said that if she tries to kick us out, we can countersue for the investments. And if she gets difficult, well, she is already 67 years old. How much does she have left? 5-10 years maximum afterward? This house is worth more than $100,000 with all the work we have done. We sell it and buy something better in the Heights like you always wanted." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I made no sound. I bit my fist to not scream. "Robert is a fool, but he is manipulable," Valerie went on. "His mom has him so traumatized that he does whatever to not disappoint her, but she does not manipulate me. I know what I want, and I am going to get it." More silence, then a laugh. "Violent." "Do not be dramatic, Mom. I am just being smart. If she was dumb enough to let us live here for free all these years, that is her problem. We just took advantage of the opportunity." Free, she said, free. As if for the 3 years they had lived here, I had not cooked for them every day. As if I had not washed their clothes. As if I had not paid for the electricity, the water, the gas. As if I had not given Robert $2,000 when he needed the down payment for his car because his credit was rejected. I moved away from the window before I could hear more. I went back to my small bed and lay there staring at the ceiling with my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. Now I knew the truth. It was not just the dispossession of a room, it was a calculated, meticulous plan to take my house away from me, to keep the only thing I had left in this world. And Robert knew it. My son knew it, and he had not told me anything. That night, I made a decision. I was not going to scream. I was not going to cry anymore. I was not going to give them the pleasure of seeing me broken. I was going to be smart. I was going to plan. And when I attacked, it was going to hurt so much that they would never forget what it feels like to betray the person who gave you everything. But first I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. The next day, very early, I dialed a number I had not used in months. The phone rang 3 times before they answered. "Mom, are you okay?" Lucy's voice sounded worried. I never called her so early. "Daughter," I said, and my voice cracked despite my efforts to sound strong. "I need you to come home. I need your help, and I need you to come now." Lucy arrived 2 days later. She could not come sooner. She had hearings scheduled at her law firm in the city, but she promised me she would come on the weekend. Those 2 days were the longest of my life. Valerie noticed that something had changed in me. I did not smile at her anymore. I no longer pretended that everything was okay. She watched me with distrust, like a cat that knows the mouse is planning to escape. "Is everything okay, mother-in-law?" She asked me on Thursday morning while I was making breakfast. "Perfectly," I replied without looking at her. "You seem tense." "I am fine." She set her coffee cup on the counter with a sharp thud. "Look, mother-in-law, if you are still upset about the room thing, I think you are being very immature. It is time for you to get over it. Things change. You are already old. You need to adapt." I turned to look at her. She was wearing brand-name sweatpants that cost what I earned in a week selling pies 20 years ago. Her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, her nails freshly done, all paid for with money that my son went into debt to give her. "You are right," I said with a calm that surprised me. "Things change." She smiled, believing she had won again. She had no idea what was coming. On Friday night, Valerie gave me the news. "Mother-in-law, tomorrow some friends are coming over for brunch. We are going to be in the living room and we need privacy. Can you stay in your room? Oh, and if you could prepare something delicious, we would appreciate it. You know your homemade crepes are good. Make those." It was not a question. It was an order. Robert was sitting in the armchair watching football on TV. He said nothing. He did not even turn to look at me. "At what time?" I asked. "Around 1 in the afternoon, and mother-in-law, please wear something presentable. Not that old robe you always wear." That night, I almost did not sleep. I knew Lucy would arrive in the morning. I knew I needed to hold on just a little longer. But I did not imagine that before my daughter arrived, I was going to live the biggest humiliation of my life. Saturday, 11 in the morning. I started preparing the food. I made the batter from scratch the way my mother taught me, rolling the thin crepes, preparing the savory, filling the cream sauce, the fresh cheese. The smell filled the house. At 12:30, the doorbell rang. Valerie ran to open it. 4 women her age entered, all dressed up, wearing perfume, laughing loudly. They brought bottles of wine bags from expensive boutiques. "Welcome to my house," Valerie said, emphasizing the "my" while looking at me out of the corner of her eye. They settled in the living room. I served the food on the breakfast bar, thinking they would come for it. But Valerie came into the kitchen and made a gesture with her hand. "Mother-in-law, bring them to the living room and bring us the wine, too." I froze. "What? Serve us in the living room? We do not want to get up." I took a deep breath. I took the tray with the plates and walked out. Valerie's friends looked at me with curiosity. "Oh, that looks delicious," said one of them, a blonde wearing sunglasses inside the house. I served the plates. I went to get the wine. When I returned with the bottle and the glasses, Valerie was showing her friends her new room. "Come, I am going to show you how it turned out. It is a beauty." The 5 of them went up the stairs. I stayed downstairs, feeling my stomach turn. I could hear their voices and laughter from the second floor. "It is beautiful, Val, and this was your mother-in-law's room." "Yes, but you know how older ladies are everything antique and depressing. We did her a favor moving her to a smaller room." Laughter. They came down after 10 minutes. They sat down to eat. I was in the kitchen cleaning, trying to disappear. But then I heard Valerie's voice. "Mother-in-law, can you bring us more napkins?" I went out with the napkins. When I placed them on the table, one of the friends, a brunette with huge earrings, looked at me with a condescending smile. "And you are Robert's mom." "Yes." "Oh, how convenient to have help living in the house, right, Val?" she said to Valerie with a knowing nudge. My blood froze. "Very convenient," Valerie replied between laughs. "Although sometimes you have to tell her how things are done. You know the older generation had other standards." The laughter got louder. Another friend, a redhead with long decorated nails, looked directly at me. "And do you pay her anything, I mean, for cooking and cleaning?" The silence that followed was deafening. Valerie took a sip of wine, enjoying every second. "No, but we give her a roof and food. It is enough, right? Besides, she is family. Family helps each other." The laughter exploded. I stood there, my cheeks burning, feeling like every laugh was a slap. They saw me as the maid, as a free employee in my own house. "Mother-in-law, can you clear these plates? We are done." My hands were shaking when I took the plates. One slipped, but I caught it before it fell. More laughter. "Careful, mother-in-law." I went back to the kitchen. I put the plates in the sink. And there, standing in front of the window where the midday sun was coming in, something inside me broke. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was silent, like when a piece of glass cracks. A fine break that changes everything. I leaned against the sink, closing my eyes, breathing deeply. The tears wanted to come out, but I did not let them. I was not going to cry. Not anymore. In that moment, I heard a voice behind me. "Mom." I turned around. There was Lucy in the kitchen doorway. I had not heard her arrive. She had her small suitcase jeans, a simple blouse. But what I noticed most were her eyes full of tears of rage. "How long have you been here?" I whispered. "Long enough to hear everything." Her voice trembled. "Long enough to understand what is happening in this house." From the living room, more laughter arrived. Valerie was telling some story, her voice loud and confident. Lucy left her suitcase on the floor and came toward me. She hugged me tight, and in that hug I allowed myself for a second to be fragile, to be the mother who needed the comfort of her daughter. "No more Mom," she whispered in my ear. "This ends today." She separated from me, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and on her face I saw the same determination I had when I was young, and decided to build this house against all odds. "Where is Robert?" she asked. "He went out. He said he would be back at night." "Perfect. Then we are going to get to work, you and I like it, always should have been." "What are you going to do?" Lucy took my hands, her lawyer hands soft but firm. "I am going to do what I should have done a long time ago. Protect you, defend what is yours, and teach that woman that she cannot steal your life. Lucy, she has papers, plans, and I have the law on my side, and I have something she is never going to have, the truth." She squeezed my hands. "Now give me your cell phone. I need to see those photos you told me about on the phone, and then we are going to review every document in this house, every paper, every receipt. We are going to build a case so solid that when we are done, Valerie is going to wish she had never set foot in this house." From the living room, Valerie's voice yelled, "Mother-in-law, more wine." Lucy looked at me. I looked at her, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a happy smile. A war smile. "You go," I told Lucy. "Introduce yourself. I want to see her face when she knows I am not alone anymore." My daughter nodded, fixed her hair, and walked out of the kitchen with firm steps. I followed her a few feet behind. Valerie was pouring more wine when she saw Lucy. Her smile froze. "Lucy, what a surprise." "Hello, Valerie," my daughter said with a voice cold as ice. "I came to spend a few days with my mom. I hope you do not mind if I use my old room." "Oh, wait, right now it's yours, isn't it?" The silence in the living room was absolute. Valerie's friends looked at us without understanding what was happening. Valerie tried to regain control. "Of course, there is no problem. You can stay in the other guest room." "Do not worry, I already settled in the room with Mom." Lucy smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "We have a lot to talk about." Legal things about properties, inheritances, those things. Right, Mom? All eyes turned toward me. That is right, daughter, I said, and my voice came out firmer than it had sounded in days. Many things to review. I saw the color drain from Valerie's face, and I knew that she knew. She knew her game was over, that the dumb, manipulable mother-in-law who could be stripped of everything had just called for backup. And this backup was not going to play fair. Valerie's friends left half an hour later. The atmosphere had become uncomfortable tense, like when everyone knows a storm is about to break, but no one wants to be the first to talk about it. Valerie said goodbye to them at the door with fake kisses and promises to see each other soon, but I could see how her hands were shaking when she closed the door. Lucy and I were sitting at the dining room table. My daughter had taken out her laptop, a thin silver one that shined under the light and had spread papers all over the table. I had passed her my cell phone with the photos I took of Valerie's desk. "This is serious, Mom," Lucy said while reviewing the images, zooming in with her fingers on the screen. "Very serious." Valerie walked into the living room. She had taken off her heels and was walking barefoot, trying to look casual. But I noticed how her eyes did not stop looking at the papers on the table. "What are you guys doing?" Lucy looked up. "Reviewing documents. Mom's legal matters. Do not worry." "What documents?" "The ones for the house," I replied, staring at her. "The deeds, the payments, everything that proves who is the owner of this property." Valerie crossed her arms. "Nobody is saying it is not your house, mother-in-law." "Oh, really?" Lucy took out her cell phone and pressed the screen. Suddenly, a voice filled the room. Valerie's voice talking on the phone in the garden. "It is almost ours, Mom. The old lady is confused. She does not know anything about the loan yet." I recorded everything that night without her knowing. My old cell phone had a recorder function that Lucy had taught me to use months ago. The color drained from Valerie's face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Sit down," Lucy said with her lawyer voice that does not accept a no for an answer. Valerie stood there. I said, "Sit down." Valerie obeyed, dropping onto the couch as if her legs could no longer hold her. Lucy stopped the recording. "Now we are going to talk, and you are going to tell me the truth. What loan?" "I do not know what you are talking about." "Do not take me for an idiot." Lucy's scream surprised even me. My daughter had always been calm, measured. "I have the recording. I have photos of legal documents you were researching about possession rights. I have receipts for $15,000 in renovations that were not authorized by the owner of this house. So I am going to ask you one more time. What loan?" Valerie bit her lip. Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt no compassion anymore. I just wanted answers. "Robert." She started with a broken voice. "Robert took out a loan." "How much?" Silence. "How much?" $50,000. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. $50,000. More than it cost to build part of this house. "And what did you use as collateral?" Lucy asked, although by her tone she already knew the answer. "The house," she whispered. Lucy stood up, walking around Valerie like a lawyer interrogating a witness. "You used my mother's house without her knowledge, without her signature as collateral for a loan. Do you have any idea that that is fraud?" "We do have the signature," Valerie exploded. She covered her mouth, but it was too late. The words had come out. The world stopped. "What did you just say?" My voice came out barely as a whisper. Valerie started crying for real now, with sobs that shook her body. "We did not want to do it like that, but we needed the money. Robert has debts, a lot of debts that you do not know about, Mom. Credit cards, personal loans. If we did not pay, they were going to sue him to put him in prison. And your solution was to steal your mother's house." Lucy's voice was steel. "To forge her signature. We were going to fix everything before you noticed." Valerie looked at me with desperation. "The plan was to remodel the house, increase its value, and then sell it. With that money, we would pay the loan and give you your share. We were going to buy you a small, comfortable apartment where you did not have to worry about anything, where I would not be in the way. I finished the sentence for her. A heavy silence fell. And the legal investigations on possession rights, Lucy continued, were those also part of that generous plan? Valerie did not answer. That is what I thought. Lucy went back to her laptop. Mom, give me the house deeds. I got up with trembling legs and went to my room, the guest room where I now slept. From the bottom of my suitcase, I took out a yellow envelope where I kept the most important documents of my life. The deeds were there protected in a plastic sleeve. I took them to Lucy. She reviewed them carefully, turning every page with a lawyer's attention. Here it is, she said after a few minutes. Spousal Protection Clause. Dad was very smart when he drafted this with the notary. The house is solely in Mom's name. For any transaction sale or using the property as collateral, her signature certified before a notary with 2 witnesses is needed. And here, it specifically says that no one can transfer rights or create liens without the explicit consent of the owner. She looked at Valerie with eyes that could cut glass, which means that any document you have signed with a lender is void, completely invalid. And if you forged my mother's signature, you are not only committing property fraud, you are committing a federal crime. Valerie was pale as death. Please, please do not do this. Robert is your brother. Robert is a thief, Lucy said coldly, and you are his accomplice. The front door opened. Robert walked in with a grocery bag, whistling unconcernedly. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the 3 of us in the living room, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. What is going on here? Sit down, Robert, I told him, and my voice was not shaking anymore. It was full of something new, a disappointment so deep it had turned into strength. Mom, Sit down. He sat next to Valerie, my son, the boy I carried for 9 months, who I nursed, who I watched over when he had a fever, who I defended from bullies at school, the boy who once told me that when he grew up, he was going to build me a castle. Now he could not even look me in the eyes. Lucy explained to your brother what we just discovered, I said. My daughter took out a folder and began to read aloud. Every document, every receipt, every proof of his betrayal. The $15,000 in renovations, the legal documents investigating how to dispossess me, the loan of $50,000, with a forged signature, the recorded conversations of Valerie planning to keep my house. With every revelation, Robert sank deeper into the couch. When Lucy finished, the silence was absolute. Even the birds outside seemed to have stopped singing. Is it true? I asked my son. Is all this true? Robert covered his face with his hands. Mom, the debts, I did not know what to do. I was going to pay you back everything, I swear. I was going to. You did not answer me. Did you forge my signature? He looked up. His eyes were red. Yes. That simple word fell like a stone into a bottomless well. Then this is what is going to happen, Lucy said, taking control. You have 48 hours to get out of this house. You are going to take only your clothes and personal belongings. All the furniture you bought with money from the fraud stays here. You cannot kick us out, Valerie screamed. This house is also Robert's. It is his inheritance. It was his inheritance, I corrected her, until he decided to rob me while I was alive. Mom, please. Robert knelt in front of me. Real tears ran down his face. Please give me another opportunity. I am going to fix everything. I am going to get the money. I am going to... You are going to what, Robert? Are you going to give me back my dignity? Are you going to erase the fact that you allowed them to treat me like a maid in my own house? Are you going to make me forget that you signed documents with my name without my permission? Mom, no. I stood up. For 42 years, I gave you everything. My youth, my health, my whole life. And when I finally needed you to take care of me, to respect me, you decided to betray me in the worst way possible. Mom, I love you. Love does not steal. Love does not lie. Love does not plan to dispatch its mother to a small apartment to keep what she built. Robert sobbed on the floor. Valerie was in shock, staring at the wall. Lucy took some papers out of her folder. Here is the document you are going to sign. It is an agreement where you recognize that you have no right over this property, that all improvements were made without authorization, and that you commit to not initiating any type of legal action against my mother. If you do not sign it tomorrow, we file charges for property fraud with the district attorney. And if we sign it? Valerie asked with a voice barely audible. If you sign it and leave without problems, we do not sue you. It is that simple. Robert looked at the document. Then he looked at me. Mom, if I sign this, will you forgive me someday? The question floated in the air, and I asked myself, could I forgive something like this? Could I someday trust the son who had betrayed me in this way again? I do not know, I replied with honesty. Maybe someday, but not today and not soon. Robert took the pen that Lucy extended to him. With a trembling hand, he signed the document. Valerie did the same, her tears staining the paper. 48 hours, Lucy repeated. And if you dare to damage anything, steal anything, or cause any kind of problem, forget the agreement and you go straight to jail. They stood up like zombies and walked up the stairs. We heard them walking on the second floor, opening drawers, speaking in whispers. I let myself fall onto the armchair. All the weight of the last few days fell upon me all at once. I started to tremble. Lucy sat down next to me and hugged me. It is over, Mom. It was over, but I knew it was not really over. I knew that the next 2 days were going to be hell. That seeing my son pack up his life and leave the house I built for him was going to break me in ways I could not even imagine. But I also knew something else. That for the first time in a long time, I was not alone, and that I was finally going to win this battle. The following 2 days were a silent torture. Robert and Valerie moved through the house like ghosts, avoiding looking at me packing their things into cardboard boxes they had gotten from the grocery store. The sound of packing tape sealing the boxes became the soundtrack of those 48 hours. Lucy did not leave my side for a single moment. We slept together in the guest room, hugging each other like when she was a little girl and had nightmares. But now the nightmare was real, and we were awake, living it. On Monday morning, the deadline day, Lucy decided it was time to have one last conversation. A conversation that would put everything on the table without screaming, without tears, just truths. We need to close this properly, she told me while we drank coffee in the kitchen. Not for them, but for you, so you can move forward without doubts. At 10 in the morning, the 4 of us sat in the dining room at the same table where we had shared hundreds of meals. The table where Robert had done his homework as a child, where we celebrated his birthdays, his graduations, his engagement to Valerie. Now it was the table of the final judgment. Lucy had a thick folder in front of her. She opened it with precise movements and began to take out documents one by one. Before you leave, she began, I want you to understand exactly what you did, not to make you feel bad, but so that you never do this to anyone ever again. She placed the first document on the table. The deed to the house signed in the year 2005. Total construction value $150,000. My mother worked for 15 years to gather that money. 15 years cleaning, cooking, selling. While you, she looked at Robert, studied, went out with friends, and lived a normal life. Robert looked at the table. Lucy placed another paper down. Bank statements. Here are the movements on Mom's credit card for the last 6 months. She pointed to a line marked with a yellow highlighter. Charges at department stores for $8,000. Valerie, your name appears on several of the receipts as the person who signed. You used her card without authorization. Valerie wrung her hands but said nothing. Next. Lucy placed more papers down. Loan contract with a predatory lender from the neighborhood. $25,000 borrowed at 30%, Annual interest. A document with my mother's signature forged using this house as collateral. She looked up. Do you know what would have happened if you did not pay? The lender would have started a legal process, and even though the signature was fake, the process would have been long, expensive, and agonizing. Mom would have had to hire lawyers, go to court, and prove the fraud, all while you two enjoyed the stolen money. It wasn't like that, Robert began. Yes, it was like that, Lucy exploded. Exactly like that. And the worst part is that you did not show even an ounce of remorse until you were discovered. She placed another document down, quotes from lawyers specializing in property law. Valerie, you got 3 different legal opinions on how to claim possession rights over a property. All the consultations were in February and March of this year. This was not an impulse. It was a plan calculated over months. I just wanted to secure our future, Valerie murmured. At whose expense? Lucy asked her. At the expense of a 67-year-old woman who gave everything for her family. Valerie stood up abruptly. Enough already. What do you want me to say, that I am sorry? Well, yes, I am sorry, happy, but don't pretend your mom is a saint. She has always manipulated Robert. She has always made him feel guilty, as if he owed her his entire life, just because she decided to sacrifice herself. I lost my breath. How dare you? I started. It is the truth. Valerie had red cheeks, her eyes shining. It is always Mom suffered so much. Mom worked so much. Mom sacrificed so much. And you know what? Yes, she did. But that was her decision. Robert didn't ask her to kill herself working. He just wanted a mother, not a martyr who charges him for every penny invested. Robert put his hand on her arm. Val, enough. No, Robert, I'm not going to be quiet anymore. She turned toward me. I know we made mistakes, I know we messed up, but you aren't perfect either, mother-in-law. Always trying to control Robert's life, always meddling in our marriage, always comparing me to your perfect life of sacrifice. The words hurt. They hurt because there was a small truth in them. Maybe I had been too present. Maybe I had used my sacrifice as an emotional weapon without realizing it. You are right, I said, and everyone looked at me in surprise. I am not perfect. And maybe I did make mistakes as a mother. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I reminded you too many times of everything I did for you. I stood up, looking Robert in the eyes. But none of that justifies what you did. None of that justifies stealing from me, forging my signature, planning to strip me of the only thing I have left. If you were upset with me, you should have talked about it. If you felt I was pressuring you, you should have set boundaries. But you had no right to destroy me. Robert had tears running down his cheeks. Mom, I never wanted to destroy you. I just felt so pressured, the debts, the job, Valerie wanting a better house, and me unable to give her anything. And there was this house so big just for you, and I thought that if we could keep it, everything would be fixed. And my opinion, my will, did that not matter? I thought you wouldn't notice until it was too late, he said, and the brutal honesty of his words was like a punch. I thought that by the time you noticed, everything would already be legally settled and you would have to accept it. There it was, the naked truth. It was not a mistake. It was not an impulse. It was a deliberate plan to steal my house before I could defend myself. Lucy placed the last document on the table. Mom's new will. We drafted it yesterday with the notary. In it, it specifies that this house at the moment of her death will pass completely to my name. Robert is explicitly excluded from any inheritance related to this property. He can contest it if he wants, but with all the evidence we have, he won't win. Robert went pale. You are disinheriting me? Yes, I answered, and my voice did not tremble. Because a son who steals from his mother does not deserve to inherit anything from her. But you always said the house was for your children, for the two of us. It was for my children. But you decided to stop being my son the day you forged my signature. The silence that followed was devastating. Robert broke down, crying deep sobs that shook his whole body. Valerie hugged him, but even she seemed to understand that there was no turning back. "You can leave," Lucy said. "Your deadline expired an hour ago. We gave you extra time, but no more. You have 2 hours to finish packing and get out. After that, if you are still here, we are calling the police." Robert stood up, stumbling. He looked at me one last time. "Is there nothing I can do for you to forgive me?" The question hung in the air, and I asked myself, what could he do? What actions could erase this betrayal? I don't know, Robert. Maybe with time. Maybe if you show with facts, not words, that you understand what you did. But that doesn't mean you will come back to live here. That doesn't mean I will include you in my will again. Some things once broken never go back to being the same. But I am your son. And I am your mother. And you betrayed me. I took a breath. Now go, please, before I regret not pressing charges. They went up the stairs for the last time. Lucy and I followed them to supervise that they didn't take anything that wasn't theirs. We watched them put the last things in the suitcases, taking down their decoration from my room, watching how Valerie took down the expensive curtains she had bought, the framed photos of the two of them, the modern lamp. When they finished, they brought down the suitcases, 4 large suitcases, 3 boxes. That was all they were taking from 3 years of living here. Robert loaded everything into his car parked outside, a car for which I had given him the down payment 2 years ago. Before getting in, he turned one last time. "Mom, take care. Robert," I said, and closed the door. I stayed there, standing on the other side, listening to how the engine started, how it drove away, how my son was leaving my house, maybe forever. Lucy hugged me from behind. "You did the right thing, Mom." "Then why does it hurt so much?" I whispered. "Because love doesn't turn off from one day to the next. Because even though he did something terrible, he is still your son. And that is the hardest part of all this, that the pain comes exactly from that love." I cried in my daughter's arms. I cried for the son I lost, not by death, but by betrayal. And that kind of loss hurts in ways that death never could. But when the tears finally dried, when I pulled away from Lucy and looked at my house free of invaders, free of lies, I felt something new growing in my chest. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. It was something smaller, more fragile, but real. It was peace. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. That maybe it would take time, maybe I would never be the same again, but I was going to survive this. Because I had survived worse things. And always I had come out ahead. The days after Robert and Valerie left were strange. The house felt different, quieter, bigger. Sometimes I found myself setting 3 plates on the table out of habit, and then I had to put one away when I remembered that now it was just Lucy and me. My daughter stayed a full week. She requested days off from her firm to accompany me to make sure I was okay, but above all to help me reclaim my space. The first project was undoing everything Valerie had done in my room. "We are going to give this room its soul back, Mom," Lucy said on Tuesday morning. We went down to the garage and started bringing up my furniture. My mother's dresser, heavy, made of dark wood with hand carvings. Lucy got help from 2 boys from the neighborhood to bring up my bed. When they assembled it in its original place, I sat on the mattress and something inside me settled. "It doesn't smell like her perfume anymore," I said. We opened the windows all week. The smell was gone and she was gone. Lucy hung my photographs on the walls again. "Look, Mom, here are you and Dad on your wedding day so young." The photo looked back at me from its frame, the glass already repaired. Louis in his brown suit, me in my simple white dress. We had our whole lives ahead of us. We didn't know it would be so short for him, so difficult for me. "I miss him," I whispered, "especially now. He would know what to do with Robert." "I think he would have done exactly what you did," Lucy said. "Dad was gentle, but he wasn't a fool. He didn't tolerate betrayal." We spent 2 full days restoring my room. We painted the walls peach again. Lucy found the exact paint color on the internet that I had used years ago. We put up my floral curtains, my knitted blankets, my family photos. When we finished, I stood in the center of my room and turned slowly, looking at every corner. "It is done," I said. "I am back home." But while I was reclaiming my space, Robert and Valerie were discovering the consequences of their actions. Lucy kept in contact with some people from the neighborhood, and the news arrived like whispers through gossiping neighbors who came to see how I was, but who actually wanted to tell me what they knew. Mrs. Higgins, the lady from the convenience store, was the first to visit me. "Oh, Mary Ellen, what a tragedy about your son," she said while drinking the coffee I offered her. "I saw him the other day carrying boxes into a building on the east side, tiny apartments, those 2-room ones they rent for $850 a month. $850. Almost all of Robert's salary would go to rent." "And how did he look?" I asked, and I couldn't avoid the question. He was my son, after all. Finished honey with dark circles down to the floor, and Valerie. Oh, she was in a foul mood, screaming at the movers, complaining about everything. A week later, I ran into Mr. Henderson, the owner of the hardware store where Robert used to buy things. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, your son came in the other day asking for a loan. He told me while I was buying some new pots for my garden. I told him I couldn't help him, but he looked desperate. He said debt collectors were looking for him. That loan shark he owed money to is sending people to his job." The loan shark. The loan of $25,000. Without the house as collateral, how was Robert going to pay? Lucy investigated on her own and told me what she discovered. "Robert is trying to renegotiate the debt," she told me one night while we were having dinner. "But the shark doesn't want to. He is charging him interest on top of interest. The debt has already grown to $35,000. And without assets to offer, he can't ask for another loan to pay this one. And at his job, that is another problem." Lucy picked at her food without appetite. "One of the collectors went to look for him at the office. He caused a scene at the reception desk. Robert's boss found out about the debts and the fraud. They didn't fire him, but they demoted him. He is no longer a supervising engineer. Now he is an assistant. They cut his salary almost in half." I brought my hand to my chest. No matter how much Robert had hurt me, he was still my son, and hearing how his life was crumbling hurt me in complicated ways. And Valerie, she is the one who is really suffering. Lucy almost smiled, but it was a sad smile. She had to look for a job for the first time in years. I saw her at the grocery store 2 days ago. She was filling out an application as a cashier. The image of Valerie, always so groomed, so conceited, working as a cashier was difficult to imagine. 2 weeks after the eviction, I received a call. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello." "Mary Ellen, this is Claudia, Valerie's mom." My stomach tightened. Valerie's mother. The one who told her daughter she was smart for trying to steal my house. "What do you want?" "I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded tired. "Can we meet?" "I have nothing to talk about with you." "Please, just half an hour. I promise it is worth it." Something in her tone made me accept. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my house the next day. Claudia arrived on time. She was a woman of my age, well-dressed, but with a face marked by exhaustion. She sat across from me and ordered a black coffee. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You have 20 minutes, I replied coldly. She sighed deeply. "I come to ask for forgiveness on behalf of my daughter and on my own behalf." Forgiveness? I knew what Valerie was planning. She told me everything, and instead of stopping her, I encouraged her. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought she was being astute, that she was securing her future. "I didn't think about you. I didn't think that we were destroying a family. And now you do think." Now I see my daughter destroyed, crying every night, working in jobs she hates, living in an apartment where you can hear everything from the neighbors. And the worst part is that Robert blames her. He says everything was her idea, that he never would have done anything if she hadn't pressured him. And was it like that? Claudia shook her head. I don't know. I think both were at fault, but Robert is a coward. He prefers to blame her than accept his responsibility. And Valerie, my daughter, is paying a very high price. As it should be. I know. Claudia held her coffee with trembling hands. I just came to tell you that I am sorry, and that if one day you can forgive Valerie, she is regretful, truly. I stood looking at her. This woman who had encouraged her daughter to steal from me, who had participated in the plan, now she came feeling regretful because everything went wrong. Forgiveness is not asked for Claudia. It is earned. And your daughter has a very long road ahead if she wants to earn it. I understand. And tell her something from me. Let her learn the lesson that she should never try to build her happiness on the destruction of another person, because life has ways of collecting those bills, always. Claudia nodded, finished her coffee, and left. I never saw her again. That night, Lucy and I had dinner in the garden. I had bought Christmas lights and hung them in the trees, even though it wasn't Christmas season. I just wanted my house to feel cheerful again. How do you feel, Mom? Lucy asked. Strange, I admitted. Sad, angry, relieved, all at the same time. It is normal. You lost your son, but you recovered your house. It is a painful exchange. Do you think Robert will come back someday, that he will apologize for real? Lucy stood thinking. I don't know, Mom. Maybe. Or maybe he will never find the courage. Some children never learn. And me, will I be able to forgive him? That only you know, and only time will tell you. I looked at my house illuminated with little colored lights, my garden with my geraniums growing healthy, my space recovered, my dignity restored, and I knew that whether I forgave Robert or not, I was going to be okay, because I had learned the most important lesson of all, that love does not mean permitting abuse, that setting boundaries is not cruelty, that protecting yourself does not make you a bad mother. It makes you human, and it makes you strong. Lucy had to return to the city after 2 weeks. Her job needed her. Her life was there. She hugged me tight at the door before leaving. Will you be okay alone, Mom? I will be okay, I told her, and this time it wasn't a lie. I will call you every day, and if you need anything, whatever it is, I will catch a plane and be here in 3 hours. I know, honey. Go on, go peacefully. I watched her drive away in her car, and I stayed at the door feeling the morning sun on my face. The house was in silence, but it was no longer an uncomfortable silence. It was peace. The following months were of reconstruction, not just of my home, but of myself. I hired Mr. Henderson, a gentleman from the neighborhood, to help me repair things that had broken over time. Leaks I had ignored, doors that squeaked, windows that didn't close well. Little by little, the house returned to being what it always should have been, my sanctuary. I returned to cooking, but now I cooked for myself, with time, with love. I made my favorite dishes without worrying about anyone else's taste. Pot roast when I craved it, apple pie out of season, sweet cookies just because. And while I healed, the news about Robert and Valerie kept arriving. I didn't look for it, but the neighborhood has eyes and ears everywhere. Mr. Henderson told me that Robert had sold his car. I saw him on the subway the other day, Mrs. Mary Ellen. Your son on the subway at 6 a.m, squeezed in with all the people. He looked defeated, without a car, without a good salary, with debts growing. Life was charging him for every stolen dollar. Mrs. Higgins told me about Valerie. I saw her at the market buying the cheapest of everything, bruised tomatoes, chicken that is about to expire, and she was carrying everything in grocery bags because she doesn't even have a cart anymore. Before she came here showing off her designer bags, remember? I remembered. Valerie always arrived with bags from Nordstrom, from Macy's, showing her purchases like trophies. Now she looked for bargains at the market like any common person. But the story that impacted me the most arrived 3 months after the eviction. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was in the garden watering my plants when the doorbell rang. I went to open it and found a woman I didn't know. 30-something years old, well-dressed, with an unfriendly face. Mary Ellen Fuentes. Yes, that is me. I am Gabrielle Montes, an attorney. I represent Mr. Julius Stone, the lender to whom your son Robert owes $35,000. My heart accelerated. I don't owe anything to anyone I know, but your son used this house as collateral. And although we know that the signature was forged and the document is null, my client wants to recover his money. I come to ask you if you would be willing to— No, I interrupted her. Whatever you are going to ask, the answer is no. That debt is not mine. It is Robert's, and let him pay it. The lawyer sighed. Mrs. Fuentes, I understand your position, but your son does not have the means to pay. My client is considering other measures legal, but unpleasant. Are you threatening me? No, ma'am, I am just informing you. Robert filed a complaint alleging that you knew about the loan and that now you refuse to help him. It is a lie, we know, but I wanted you to know. I felt my blood boil. My son filed a complaint against me. 2 weeks ago, it was dismissed immediately because it had no legal basis, but he did it. When the lawyer left, I sat in the armchair feeling like the world was spinning. Robert had not only robbed me, not only betrayed me, now he was trying to blame me for his debts. I called Lucy immediately. Mom, breathe, breathe, she told me on the other end of the line. That complaint has no value. It is a desperate attempt by Robert to get the problem off his back. How could he do that? Lucy. How could he try to drag me into his problems after everything? Because he is scared, because he is a coward, and because he still hasn't learned that actions have consequences. Well then, let him learn the hard way. And so it was. 2 weeks later, I found out through Mrs. Higgins that Robert had been officially sued. The loan shark lost his patience and took the case to court. Without assets to seize, they requested a direct wage garnishment. 30% of Robert's salary was going to go directly to pay the debt for the next 5 years. The boy won't even be able to breathe, said Mrs. Higgins, shaking her head. With the little he earns and taking away 30%, they are going to live by a miracle. And so it was. Valerie had to get a second job. I saw her one night when I went to the 7-Eleven near my house. She was there behind the counter with the red and green uniform serving customers with a face of exhaustion. Our eyes met. She went pale. I said nothing. I paid for my things and left. But I saw in her eyes everything she had lost. Her arrogance, her security, her perfect plan of an easy life. Justice does not always arrive with dramatic blows. Sometimes it arrives like this, slow, constant, like water wearing down stone. 4 months after the eviction, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. This time it was Robert. Mom, his voice sounded broken small. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to ask you something. Something in his tone made me accept. We met at the same cafe where I had spoken with Claudia. Robert arrived unrecognizable. He had lost weight. He had gray hairs he didn't have, before deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. He sat across from me and couldn't look me in the eyes. Thank you for coming, he murmured. What do you want, Robert? I come to apologize, truly. Without excuses, without justifications. What I did was unforgivable. I stole from you. I betrayed you. I tried to take what was yours. And then, like a coward, I tried to blame you for my own mistakes. The words sounded sincere, but I didn't know if I could believe in him anymore. And what do you expect me to do with that apology? Nothing. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know. That every day I wake up with the weight of what I did, that I can't sleep thinking about your face when you discovered everything, that I have lost my mother because of my own stupidity. Does Valerie know you are here? Valerie and I separated. I stayed in silence. It didn't work. When the money ran out, when we had to face reality, we realized we had nothing else. Our marriage was built on comforts and appearances. Without that, only resentment remained. He rubbed his face. She went with her mother 2 weeks ago. We signed the divorce papers yesterday. And you came to tell me this. Why? Because I needed you to know that I am paying, that life is charging me for every mistake, and that, although I cannot fix what I broke, I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better person. Not for you, for me. Because I don't want to end up alone, bitter, without anything or anyone. I stood watching him. My son. The man who had been a sweet boy who brought me flowers from the garden. The one who hugged me and told me I was his hero. Where had that boy gotten lost? Robert. I don't know if one day I can forgive you completely. I don't know if our relationship will go back to being what it was. But I took a breath. I wish for you to find peace, that you learn from this, and that you never, never do to anyone what you did to me. Does that mean? It means nothing yet. It means I am open to seeing what you do with your life from now on. Words are easy, Robert. Facts are what count. His eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Mom. It is more than I deserve. He stood up to leave. Before leaving the cafe, he turned. I love you, Mom. I have always loved you, and I'm so sorry for hurting you. I watched him go, walking slowly with slumped shoulders, and I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe it was the beginning of something. A very long road toward healing, because poetic justice does not always mean total destruction. Sometimes it means giving someone the opportunity to rebuild themselves from the ashes of their own mistakes. And maybe, just maybe Robert would achieve it. Or maybe not. But that was no longer my responsibility. My only responsibility now was to myself. And for the first time in a long time, I was fine. 8 months have passed since Robert and Valerie left my house. 8 months that feel like an entire lifetime. Now, when I wake up in the mornings, the first thing I do is open the curtains of my room and let the sun enter. The light fills the space and touches every object I recovered. My mother's dresser, the photographs on the walls, the knitted quilt my sister gave me when we inaugurated the house. Everything is in its place, and I am too. I have learned to live alone again. It is not a sad loneliness, the kind that crushes the chest. It is a chosen loneliness, peaceful, mine. Lucy comes to visit me once a month. She stays the weekend, and we cook together like when she was a little girl. She teaches me to use my cell phone better. Now I can even make video calls. She shows me photos of her life in the city, of her job, of her friends. She tells me her plans, and I listen to her with pride, knowing that at least one of my children turned out to be a good person. Mom, you have to meet someone, she told me on her last visit. You can't stay locked up here forever. I am not locked up, honey. I am where I want to be. But a companion, some friends, something... I smiled at her. I have friends. Mrs. Higgins and I play dominoes on Thursdays. I joined a church group that does crafts. And Mr. Henderson invited me to the afternoon dances on Saturdays at the community center. Really? Lucy looked at me surprised. And have you gone? I went once. I laughed. I danced a slow dance with a very kind gentleman named Arthur. 72 years old, a widower with 3 daughters who live in California. He stepped on me twice, but it was fun. My daughter hugged me. Oh, Mom, it gives me so much joy to see you like this. After everything that happened, I thought you were going to stay bitter angry with the world. I was angry for a long time. But anger is like a poison you drink expecting it to kill the other person. It only poisons you. I looked out the window toward my garden. I decided I had already lost enough time. I wasn't going to lose more feeding grudges. That night when Lucy went to sleep, I stayed alone in the living room. I took out an old box from under my bed. Inside were all the letters and drawings Robert had made for me when he was a child. "For the best mom in the world," one said with his crooked, childish handwriting. A drawing of the three of us, Louis, Robert, and me, holding hands in front of a house. I cried, not from rage, from sadness, because that boy existed. That love existed, and although adult Robert had betrayed me, the boy for whom I was once everything was also real. I put the box away again. I didn't throw it out. Maybe one day I would need to remember that people are complicated, that we can love and hurt, that we can be good and make terrible mistakes. Robert has called me 3 times in these 8 months. Short conversations, uncomfortable at first. He tells me he got a new job, better paid at a small construction company, that he's living in a rented room alone, learning to cook, that he's going to therapy to understand why he took the decisions he took. I haven't given him false hopes. I haven't told him everything is forgiven, because it isn't. But I listen to him, and maybe with time we can build something new. Not what we had before. That died, but maybe something different, more honest, more real, or maybe not. And that is also okay. Because I learned that a mother's love does not mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It does not mean allowing them to trample you because they are your blood. True love includes boundaries. It includes respect. It includes the dignity to say, "This far. This house that I built with my own hands, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, is no longer just a building. It is a symbol. It is the proof that I can survive impossible losses, that I can get up when they knock me down, that my value does not depend on whether my children recognize me or not. I am worthy for who I am, for what I built, for the battles I won and the ones I lost, for every scar I carry with dignity. Now when I walk through my house, I touch the walls and whisper to it, 'We resisted, you and I, we resisted together.' And it is true." The other day, Mrs. Higgins told me that Valerie left the neighborhood, that she moved to Texas with her mother, that she left everything behind and started from zero. I wish her the best, seriously, because holding a grudge is like carrying rocks. They only weigh you down. Mr. Henderson told me he saw Robert at Mass last Sunday. He looked different, Mrs. Mary Ellen, more humble, more present. Maybe he is changing. Maybe not. Time will tell. But I am no longer waiting for anyone to change to be happy. I no longer need the validation of my children to know that I was a good mother. I did the best I could with what I had. I gave everything I had to give. And if that wasn't enough for Robert, it is his problem, not mine. Tonight I sat in my garden with a cup of chamomile tea. The little colored lights that I never took down illuminate the trees. It is cold, but I like feeling the fresh air on my face. It reminds me that I am alive, that I survived. And while I am sitting there thinking about everything that happened, everything I lost, and everything I gained, I arrive at a simple but powerful conclusion. It was worth it. It was worth fighting for what was mine. It was worth setting boundaries, even if it hurt. It was worth saying no, even if they called me selfish. It was worth defending myself, even if that meant losing temporarily or forever the relationship with my son. Because at the end of the day, when I close my eyes in my bed, in my room, in my house, I can sleep in peace. I don't have to wonder who is going to try to strip me of everything tomorrow. I don't have to walk on tiptoes in my own home. I don't have to pretend that everything is okay when it isn't. I am free, and that freedom, that peace is priceless. Today I want to tell you something to all of you who are listening to me, to all the women who have given so much, who have sacrificed so much, who feel they can't go on. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say, enough. You have the right to protect what you built with your own hands, with your own sweat, with your own tears. You are not bad mothers for demanding respect. You are not bad people for defending yourselves. You are not selfish for putting your well-being first. Generosity is beautiful. Sacrifice is noble. But when that generosity turns into abuse, when that sacrifice erases you as a person, when you give so much that there is nothing left of you, then it is not love. It is self-destruction. And you are worth more than that. Your children, your partners, your relatives have to learn that respect is not asked for, it is demanded. That love without respect is not love. That family does not mean infinite tolerance for abuse. If someone tries to strip you of what is yours, be it a house, your dignity, your peace, you have the right to defend what belongs to you. And if that means distancing yourself from people you love, if that means staying alone temporarily, if that means they call you hard or bitter, so be it. Because chosen loneliness is 1,000 times better than company that destroys you. And remember, it is never too late to reclaim your life. I was 67 years old when I had to face the biggest betrayal of my life. 67 years old. Many people told me I was already too old to fight to start over to be alone. But here I am at 68 years old, stronger than ever, more at peace, than ever more me than ever. Age does not define you. The mistakes of others do not define you. What defines you is how you respond when life hits you. If you stay down or if you get up, if you accept the abuse or if you say never again. I chose to get up. And if you are listening to this and you are going through something similar, I want you to know you can get up too. You have that strength inside you. Maybe you don't believe it now. Maybe you feel broken, finished, too tired to fight. But the strength is there waiting. You just need to make the decision, one decision at a time, one day at a time, one boundary at a time. And one day, I don't know when you are going to wake up and you are going to realize that you survived, that you came out ahead, that you recovered your life. And that day you are going to smile and you are going to know that every tear, every fight, every moment of pain was worth it. Because in the end, the only thing that really matters is this. Can you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of the woman you see? Can you sleep in peace knowing you defended yourself? Can you live with dignity in the space you built? If the answer is yes, then you won. And I, Mary Ellen Fuentes, 68 years old owner of this house that I built with my own hands, can say with all my heart I won. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on your own life, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching us from. Share your country, your city, and if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video. Give it a like so more women find the strength they carry inside. And subscribe to the channel to continue accompanying us in more real-life stories of real women who found their dignity when everything seemed lost. Remember, your life belongs to you, your space belongs to you, your peace belongs to you. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take it from you. See you in the next story. Take care of yourselves and never forget you are worth everything.